Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as the Lost. So today we're going to Mom's Cart, which is a very good thing because that means we don't have to fight the Hush. Now I don't have to tell you why fighting the Hush as the Lost is a bad idea. You're gonna die. There's I don't think much way to go about it unless you have some invincibility or anything else. So for that, in the majority of cases, if we're going to Hush or Boss Rush in general, we would try to get a respawn item, and that is my general strategy that I kinda take when I play as the Lost. I try to use the D4 when I get enough items and when there are not battery charges to pretty much increase or try to increase my odds just as much as possible to try to get something that will actually sustain more than 2 hits of damage. But in this case, because we're not going to Hush, that means we can kind of take a different strategy and a different approach. And that is something I feel like it's a little bit of a hidden caveat and maybe a little bit of a bonus. And you can kind of, I would say, customize your playstyle just for the circumstances you're in, right? And I feel like this is something a lot of people don't really take. Maybe they have a very set strategy. But in this particular case, of course, I'm not necessarily going for rerolls. Now, if there is going to be a good opportunity, like if there are going to be a ton of battery charges, I'm going to have a ton of items by a certain floor, then of course I'm still going to do it because it's going to be a good idea, right? I still want to complete Boss Rush. But the majority, I would say the big point here is that even if you do get to Boss Rush, and even if you don't do it, that's not gonna be that bad. Just because it's the Lost, it's obviously very hard daily, I would expect not a lot of people would actually make it to a certain point. And not just that, a lot of people would probably try to do Boss Rush as the Lost, and they would end up dying. And of course, we would always have the advantage over those people if you just go one extra floor. So, of course, it's not just worth going for that extra floor to try to get ahead of those people. Obviously, there are still people and players who will beat Boss Rush, and who will get those extra points that you want to get as well if you actually want to compete in a relatively, I would say, competitive manner. But there are other things we have to consider if we actually want to do it, or at least I would say we can approach it in a different way. So for example, what we can do is we can keep a teleport card. In this case, because I have the starter deck, I can actually keep 2 teleport cards, which is basically just the double of the effect of what I'm just about to say. And essentially, when we enter Boss Rush, we can try to fight it with the Lost. So considering, let's say, we have a really good run, we don't want to reroll it because there's obviously never a guarantee that we're gonna reroll into a respawn item, and we just want to try with basically what we have. And I feel like this run does have the potential to do that. Especially later on, we get Shatterbones, which is obviously something I think synergizes really well with Monstrous Lung. We have enough effects and DPS upgrades that I feel relatively comfortable fighting a lot of the bosses, and later on I even get Mom's Knife, and obviously that's just one of the ultimate boss killers. So let's say we want to stick with the run which we have, so we just go into Boss Rush, we try to beat it, and obviously there's always a chance of us getting hit. So at this point we can make a choice. Do we want to keep fighting, and do we want to kind of keep trying to do Boss Rush, or do we just teleport out and peace out and just go to the next floor? Obviously we always have that option, so it's just maybe, I would say, up to personal preference, just how far you're willing to go. Obviously it also does depend just how far into the Boss Rush you actually make it. It does depend on the wave and things like that. And to a certain extent, if you actually go out and go back in again, you can restart Boss Rush, but you just have to make sure that there is an item in the actual room. So let's say that there's an active item that you can pick up, and then of course you pick up the active item, and then Boss Rush starts. I think if you teleport out, come back in, and then pick up that active item again, it's gonna restart, provided you haven't completed it before. So, you know, that's just maybe, I would say, 1 or 2 options that you can approach it, and it's obviously much less of a risk doing it this way, because this way, even if you fail Boss Rush or you get hit or something like that, you still have the opportunity and the chance to go forward. You don't really need to rely on rerolling yourself into something that has more health than the Lost. So I would say that just approaching it in this way is gonna give you better results on the average case. And I do start using my teleport cards in this exact boss run because it was a bit of a caneous one, I would say. Just we didn't have enough speed, so when they started charging at us, when we have to dodge, there really wasn't a lot of ways to go, but still we did get through it. And we still have an additional teleport card we can use to teleport out of Boss Rush. Like I said, that does have a twofold effect. We can either complete Boss Rush, go teleport out, explore the entirety rest of the floor, or we can teleport out as soon as possible. Well, I would say a lucky star shined on me when I actually entered the floor, and I found Dark Judas in my boss room, in my Boss Rush room. And I decided to pick it up, and I was like, well, this is great. I can just teleport out, right? I can try to find a curse room, or maybe I can bomb myself, and I can try to respawn as Dark Judas and get back into Boss Rush, because the Boss Rush door stays open. Well, that would have been a very good idea if I haven't forgotten about 2 things. The first one was there was no curse room in the entire floor, which means I can't reliably take damage. And I would say that's no problem, just bomb yourself once, it's not that big of a deal. But I had 9 lives, which means that not only do I have to bomb myself for 9 times to actually get to of course, the item, so I get to Dark Judas in the first place, but when that happens, I would like to take Dark Judas, obviously, and go back to boss rush. So, of course, I couldn't do that because I couldn't kill myself or bomb myself enough times. So at this point, I'm like, okay, doesn't matter, right? I have Mom's Life, I'm strong enough. I can just go back with my regular non-Dark Judas item, and I'll try to beat the boss rush in that way. Well, I go back in, of course, into boss rush, but there aren't any items that I can pick up, because I already picked up the passive item I wanted to pick up, and obviously at that point, every single other item disappears. So I don't have a way to re-trigger boss rush, and I don't have a way to trigger my Judas Shadow, because I have 9 lives. So it's just one of those things which I would say is a bit of an unfortunate coincidence, but obviously it's my fault, because I didn't really know the consequences of the run in some sense. Like, this is something I knew, like, if I thought about it, but just in the moment I was like, oh, I need to do this because it seems like a solid strategy. Well, doing that, of course, I'd say it doesn't make that big of a difference. Sure, we didn't do boss rush, it's a bit of a bummer, but you still managed to respawn as Dark Judas later on. And not only that, we got a Humbling Bundle and the Jar, which will allow me to break the game, which will allow me to get something like 7,000 points in total, and I think that those 7,000 points that I'll gain this way are definitely gonna make up for the difference I lost in the other ways. So it's maybe a bit of a different way of accruing points, and obviously it would have been better if I had the 4,000 additional extra points by just completing boss rush in the first place, but it is what it is, and we're just trying to get as many points as we can, and it still managed to actually rank up pretty well. You still have to remember this is a lost daily, so you can't really expect a lot of people to have amazing scores at the end, so just finding a way to break the game and just getting to the end is usually gonna be enough to rank in a relatively decent manner. So of course I use my jars, I spawn a bunch of hearts, I pick them up, I get a lot of points, I pick up the trophy, and that is pretty much it. So we finished the run like in the top 10. It got a little bit confusing at the end there, and obviously if we did have boss rush, we would have over 40,000 points, but still a relatively decent daily. We got to the end. Our item penalty was high, obviously, but that's just because I took so many items. Since I wanted, or at least I wanted the possibility to actually use those items to reroll them with the D4, but that opportunity never came. It's a bit of a bummer, like we could have reduced our score by like an additional 1,000 if I knew it in the future, but in the time being, as I was actually playing through the daily, it seemed like a wise choice, and that's why I did it, obviously. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.